The World Cup in Qatar begins on the 20th of November, and there are many reasons not to watch it. The simplest of which being, based on the evidence of recent tournaments, it will probably be exceptionally boring. For the past decade, international football has been largely dominated by cagey defensive tactics, with teams trying to upset the rhythm of the game, limit the opposition's ability to create chances rather than creating chances themselves, and generally just trying to nick a goal off each other from set pieces that they won by a player taking a dive and rolling around as if he'd been shot. And if there's one thing more boring than the game itself, it's the interviews with the players afterwards. 20-year-old boys who've been pampered and coddled since the age of 12 or 13, carrying themselves with all the charisma of a pube floating around a toilet bowl, mindlessly garbling the PR soundbites that they've been spoon-fed, and generally demonstrating all the intelligence and personality of a plank of wood that's had a haircut painted on it. Another major reason not to watch the World Cup is because the whole tournament will be undermined by endless virtue signalling sanctimonious waffle about human rights abuses in Qatar. There's already been a huge amount of hand-wringing piety about Qatar all over the BBC. That's right, the same BBC that's broadcasting extensive coverage from the tournament. So, they're generating a lot of coverage about why we shouldn't be having the World Cup in Qatar, and then even more coverage from showing highlights of the competition itself. Talk about a double dip, that's really having your cake and eating it, isn't it? But far be it for any of us to accuse our self-appointed moral arbiters at the BBC of double standards. And we've already had Brewdog, peddlers of sanctimony and hipster beer, launch a huge expensive advertising campaign denouncing the World Cup in Qatar, but also just letting us know that they'll still be showing all the games in their pubs where you can pay through the nose for their overpriced ditch water and be as much of a rancid hypocrite as they are. So, corrupt tournament organisers, vapid footballers, unprincipled commentators and sanctimonious holier-than-thou BBC journalists and satirists will all be making fistfuls of cash from the tournament, whilst we're bombarded with it across our televisions and the internet, leaving us bored, irritated and mildly depressed. I mean, sport is supposed to entertain us all and be a unifying experience. But why worry about that when there's so much dirty cash to be made? Well, the very best thing we can all do for ourselves and for civilization in general is switch that trash off and put a big dent in the profit margins of people who've entirely ruined a game that used to bring pleasure to millions around the world.